was a admissions officer at the Wharton component of Penn undergraduate, which is probably, it was, when I was there, the most difficult undergraduate school to get into in the country. Now some schools, Harvard and Princeton undergraduate, have slightly lower acceptance rates, but at the time when I was there, it was the most difficult to get into. And that means that basically like 7% of candidates were accepted. So it was really, really competitive. We had probably about 1,000 candidates. We probably admitted maybe about 100, and maybe about 70 of those showed up. Okay, so it's very, very competitive. And I think people are really realizing now, so they look at the admissions rates to most schools, schools that were once considered easy to get into are now becoming more and more competitive. If you look at schools, particularly those with generous financial aid packages, they're more and more competitive. Places like Harvard and Princeton, where they don't want you to graduate with student loans. So obviously more and more people find that attractive. All of their financial aid comes in the form of grant. They're very popular. There was an article in the New York Times a few months ago that's calling the SUNY schools the new Harvard. And why is that? Obviously, we all are living through this sort of global economic problem. Your parents probably don't have as much money as they once did. Most people don't have as much money as they once did. The options available going to private schools are no longer there. So many people are going back and they're looking at public schools as a really viable option. It's just really sort of the nature of the landscape of where things lie nowadays. There's an article in the New York Times even a few weeks ago about how competitive Cooper Union is to get into. Why? Because it's free. And so economics plays a huge component. And it's really good that we're having someone come in here in a few weeks talking about financial aid, because it's great to have dreams and ambitions to go to school, but financial planning on your behalf and your parents' behalf is critical to start as early as possible. We don't want to burden you being in 10th grade with economics, but it's something you have to think about. Some private schools are as much as $50,000 a year. That means without financial aid, $200,000 for a 4-year college degree. That's a lot of money. So scholarship, financial aid, economics comes into sort of choosing the right school. So let's just sort of go on a macro level, sort of a big level, what really goes into sort of choosing the right school. And once again, it's never too early to start thinking about schools. I know most of you probably have friends or brothers or sisters or mentors who went to school, so you hear a lot of information about different places. I mean, there are probably about 7,000 universities here in the United States. And if you want to think of the one industry where the U.S. globally is admired, it's not automobile, it's not the financial industry, it's the education industry. We have the best universities here throughout the world. People throughout the world want to come here and go to school. So you will be competing when you apply, not just against people from your high school or from New York City or New York State or the Northeast United States or the United States, but you'll be competing against people from the world, basically. And people from little countries in the middle of nowhere to big, large countries all want to come to school here. Parents all want to send their kids to school here. You'd be surprised when you go on school campuses now just how diverse these campuses are. Not everyone's a native English speaker, not everyone went to the U.S. high schools. Kids from around the world all want to go to school in the United States. And it's even more competitive like that when you go into U.S. graduate schools. You'd be surprised at some of the graduate schools. Now you go to Columbia, can you imagine, you go to journalism? Okay, it's probably about 50% foreign, right? 50% non-native, non-Americans? Yeah. 30%. At the business school at Columbia, it's a stated goal that 50% of all students come from abroad. So it's kind of an interesting thing. So you're competing against the world. So